Hey there, I'm Priscilla. I am so glad that you are joining us for the Chat with Priscilla. This is a place where you can just come and relax and hang out with me and just talk about some things that I hope will be inspirational to you, challenging to you, and today I think informative to you, really informative. You know, we live in a culture where being broke is kind of normal. Being in debt, being strapped financially, that's what we see all around us. And for many of us, that's what we were raised seeing by our parents. But we're talking to a guest today who's going to help us to break all of that in our lives and to find wealth in the sense of freedom in our lives financially. I cannot wait to talk to Rachel Cruz, so stay tuned. Okay, I want you to listen to this. Normal in America, Dave Ramsey writes, is broke. So if you do normal behaviors, you will be broke. And if your kids are financially normal, they will be broke. So he says, this book isn't for normal people. It is for people who have figured out that normal is not good enough. This book is for weird people. People who are willing to act differently in order to become wealthy. He means free financially. And wealth is so unusual and abnormal that we must say it really is weird in our culture to have financial freedom. So if your goal is to take mediocrity to the grave and to raise children who are perpetuating your stupidity, that's why I love Dave Ramsey. He says, then this book is not for you. But we are weird people in this studio audience today, and I know you are too, people who don't want to be strapped financially. You don't want to constantly go to your grave worried about what you're going to do about your finances. More importantly, we don't want to pass this on to generations to come. And so I'm so excited because Dave Ramsey has this little daughter, sweet little daughter named Rachel Cruz. Rachel Cruz learned from the best, and now she is passing on her financial wisdom one generation to the next. I wonder today if you will please help me to welcome the daughter of Dave Ramsey and the author of the #1 New York Times best-selling book, Smart Money, Smart Kids. Welcome Rachel Cruz, please. Yay!
Thank you so much. So great. Thank you.
Have a seat. I have been waiting to talk to you.
No, it's been so long. I feel like we've been waiting for this.
I know, because our paths have kind of crossed, except not crossed, because we've kind of been in the same circles a little bit, but we're there different times.
We pass each other in hallways.
Yes, but I do know your dad. We've met before. Your dad introduced us to each other.
Yes, that's right.
And your dad is a remarkable guy. We have to kind of start by talking about him just a little bit. I hope you don't mind.
Oh, no, I take it as a badge of honor.
Yeah.
It's good. I've accepted it, right? I'll always be Dave Ramsey's daughter, and that's a great thing.
And you know what? People do that to me, too, because I'll just always be Tony Evans' daughter. It's just the way that it is. And it's okay, because they're good dads.
Exactly. I'm not embarrassed by it most of the time, but you know.
Well, your dad is very straightforward. He's very direct. He believes what he's talking about. If you don't know, he is how would you describe him? The foremost voice in our country for financial being,
yes,
right?
And
I don't
freedom. Know. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, he wants people to be out of debt and be free.
100%.
How long has that been his life's mission?
Sure. Well, I actually was born in a very interesting time in Mom and Dad's life. So I was born the year they filed for bankruptcy. So I was born in April and they filed in September.
Okay.
So my whole life I've watched Dave and Sharon Ramsey figure out God's ways of handling money. So I've had that front row seat in a sense. So ever since I can remember, you know, they were very intentional with us growing up. I think a lot of people think we had like mutual fund parties and like budget camps all the time, and thankfully that wasn't the case.
I'm so glad.
I know, right? Wouldn't that be horrible? Wouldn't that be horrible? So I think that's one thing people assume, that when you want to teach your kids about money, that it has to be like this crazy big, you know, philosophy, and we have to talk all about it, where honestly, living it day in and day out, your kids see that. So that was a big part of growing up as Dave Ramsey's kid.
Okay.
And understanding money is watching him and Mom.
Okay, what did you see them doing to climb out of that state of being bankrupt and to this place of freedom and wholeness in their finances? What are some of the things you remember as a little girl watching your mom and dad do?
Sure. Well, going into debt was never going to be a part of their story again. They drew a hard line in the sand and said, no matter what, we're not borrowing money, because the borrower is slave to the lender. And they felt that so much, obviously, because they filed for bankruptcy. And so they were a one-car family for many years. I mean, they really stuck to that. So, I mean, little things. I remember my mom, since we didn't use credit cards.
You're about to run on past that point, and that is so huge.
What?
You just said something that we all have to get. The borrower is going to be a slave to the lender. You're going to feel enslaved to who you have borrowed that money from,
exactly
the interest
right.
that is piled on top of that you're constantly trying to pay back. So
Absolutely.
you really do have to draw a line in the sand and say, if I don't have cash for it, I'm not buying it.
If you don't have the money, don't buy it. Shocking financial advice, isn't it? Isn't that crazy? I mean, it's common sense. We all know it, but to live it out day in and day out here in our culture today, it is so hard. So to draw that line in the sand and say, no matter what, we're not borrowing money, you become weird. You know, like you said in the intro, you do. And so for mom and dad, you know, I never saw them have a credit card even. And so I remember mom using cash at the grocery store, and she had an envelope and it was labeled groceries, and I watched her pull 2 $100 bills out and pay for groceries. And I was 6 years old. And I remember seeing the $200 bills and thinking, it was like $2 million to a 6-year-old. I couldn't believe it. And so that was my memory of realizing, okay, that's how much groceries cost. And so just seeing them play out and being in church and watching dad drop a folded check in the offering bag, you know, watching them give and all of this. And so that was the powerful thing, is that more is caught than taught.
Yeah, and you know what I think is so interesting is that you said you saw these bills. You saw a $100 bill. I think that most of our kids today see credit cards. That's what they see. They're seeing the debit card and they're seeing the credit card. Because how many of our kids have said to us when we say, I don't have the money for that, and they're like, well, just pull out that little card.
Swipe out that plastic thing.
They don't even know what it does. They're just like, pull that thing out. You know, that works.
So true.
But when you see a bill, your children realize that actually, there's actual money that has to go into these groceries coming into our house.
And the thing that happens with actual cash too, that your kids see that's powerful, is that an exchange happens. You give something, you have to let something go in order to gain something else. Where when you swipe, you know, there's a mentality, okay, you get your thing and you get to keep. There was no exchange happening. And so to watch something leave in order to gain something else is a powerful lesson, even for adults, right? I mean, when I spend with cash, it hurts more. You know, when I lay that $100 bill down at dinner, it's like, oh, Uncle Benjamin, right? Like, he's leaving me. Like, I miss him. So you feel that versus just throwing, you know, the credit card.
Uncle Benjamin, that's good. That's good. Well, I like, you know, so many things about your dad. But I love that he says here that if you want to raise your children to perpetuate your stupidity, this book just isn't for you. And I love that you're basically saying to us that your parents decided we are tired of our own stupidity, and we are not going to let this be Rachel's story. We're going to teach her differently. And so many of us just have to make that choice. Just decide that we're going to change the trajectory of our kids' life. So you watch your children, your parents use cash. You watch them draw a hard line in the sand that they're going to just cut up those credit cards and put them away. And then you watch them make sacrifice, because you were starting to mention the whole one-car situation, for example. What other sacrifices did you watch?
Oh, sure. Well, you know, coupon clipping was like a normal, going and shopping with mom. I mean, she would pull out, you know, 6, 7 coupons, and, you know, just those kinds of things, and saying no a lot. We never went out to eat. I remember we could go to the Olive Garden the Sunday after our birthday. It was near our church. So the Olive Garden was like our big thing. And so now I love going out to eat, because I was like deprived as a kid, right? So I'm always like, oh, I love restaurants. And so, you know, but those things, we went to Sharon's Kitchen, is what they called it. So we had to go home and eat. And you know what? Just for encouragement for parents out there, I survived.
Yeah, you did.
I was okay. You know? And I think so many parents think, oh, if I can't give my kids these things, if I can't let them experience this and this, you know, they're going to be deprived. No, if anything, I think it builds stronger character to see boundaries and to see limits and to feel that.
I really think, and I struggle with this. You know, I'm a mom of 3 boys, and we're going to bring, for part 2 of our conversation with Rachel, we're going to bring some young people out here and let them ask their questions to Rachel. But I really struggle because, you know, I've got getting ready to be 13 next week, then 11 years old and 7-year-old. And I'm realizing that just because one generation does better than the next, you know, you probably are doing a little bit better than your parents were, and your children, you want them to do a little bit better than you're doing. So I realize that a lot of the things that I didn't have access to as a kid, my children do, and they're not even thinking twice about the fact that they have it, because it's normal to them that they have it. That they're going, you know, I didn't go out to eat on Sundays either. It was like Mom cooked on Sunday.
That's right.
My kids just, when I say dinner, they run to the car. They think,
that's great.
You know, because they think this is normal, you know?
That's right.
So you watched your parents sort of pull back the reins and cause you to understand that to get, you are paying something, you are giving something out.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's hard to do. And that's the thing, is as I'm a mom now of a 6-month-old, right? And I want to go cash out my 401k every time I go into the Baby Gap, right? I'm like, oh my gosh, I could just buy all this stuff all the time. So I know it's hard because, like you said, you want to give your kids a better life, but I believe give them a better life that you can pay for. And so mom and dad at that point, they couldn't pay for it, and so we heard no a lot.
Yeah.
But I am so thankful for that, and I think that's one encouragement for parents, that no matter what mistakes you've made, your kids are your clean slate. Your kids are your do-over. And so don't stop your money mistakes and saying, well, I live paycheck to paycheck. I have so much debt. We don't have savings. We don't budget. Or we're horrible with our money. It doesn't matter. You can still teach your kids how money works. Your kids can have a different story. And I'm a product of that. I'm so thankful that coming from parents who are bankrupt, that they didn't say, oh, well, that's it. You know, we don't know what we're doing. We're stupid. We're bad with money. Our kids don't have a chance. No, they took the opposite approach and said, okay, no, we're going to instill this in their kids. So just because you're not great with money right now, I want you to get your act together for your own sake financially, but you still have the right to speak into your kids' lives.
Okay, this is what I remember that my dad taught me about finances. And as I was thinking about talking to you, I was just reminded about this. Dad always said to me, here's the formula for always having money. This is little kid growing up. I remember being 5 and 6, he said this to me.
Yeah.
He said, you always, for every dollar, you give to the Lord, you save, and then you spend. You give 10% to the Lord without question. You save at least, if not more, 10% of what you have, always, and then you have left to spend. And that little formula, if I had $1, we were putting a dime in the tithe, we were putting a dime in a little jar, and then I had 80 cents left to spend.
That's right.
And I realized now as an adult, because my father said that to me growing up, that's just what I do. It's just what I do. When we come back from the break, I want to talk to you about whatever sort of things you heard your dad say to you at 6, 7, 8, 10, 15 that really did inform and influence your life as an adult.
That's great.
Okay, we'll talk about that as soon as we come back. Stay tuned. Hi, I'm Priscilla, and I wanted to take an opportunity to invite you personally to join me for a 7-session Bible study on the armor of God. We'll dive deeply into what it means to be equipped to stand firm against the schemes of the enemy. He is very real, and he has been so strategic and targeted in his attacks against us. Why shouldn't we be equally strategic and targeted in standing firm against him? And you and I have an opportunity to suit up, to put on some armor that works, and to go to battle and to see victory declared in our lives and in the lives of those people that we love. This Bible study will be one that will change our lives forever and will help us to walk in victory. So plan to join me, won't you? The armor of God. Welcome back. We are having a great time talking about financial freedom with my brand new friend, Rachel Cruz, who is joining us today. I'm so glad that you were here. We were talking about before the break, the lessons that your parents can teach you when you're young. You know, my parents taught me lessons when I was young, and literally one of those lessons, for example, was you don't need a credit card. Do not get a credit card. And I listened to that. I did not listen to everything my parents told me to do, but I did listen to that. And I will say, I have never been in debt my entire life because and when you're not in debt, you feel like you have money. Even if you're not wealthy, but you're not constantly shelling out to a debtor. And so not having a credit card when I was in college and racking up that debt really provided for financial freedom in the future. So what are some lessons when you were young that your father just sort of, and your mother, repeatedly shared with you that informed your decision making later on in life?
Well, our parents must have been good friends because the give, save, spend mentality was something. And I think that's huge because learning that as a kid to give, save, and then spend. Because when I talk to so many adults and you know, helping them with their own finances, you know, we're looking at their budget and they say, well, Rachel, I want to be able to give. I want to be able to spend, or I want to be able to save, but I don't have any money. I don't have money to give and to save. Because by the time I pay all my bills on my budget, at the bottom there is no money left. I tell them, well, that's because you have your budget upside down.
Okay.
You give first, you save second, and then you pay bills.
Okay, so what happens though when you do that? You're saying turn your budget upside down, you tithe, you save, but what if somebody's saying, wait a minute, that doesn't leave enough to cover all of my bills. Don't I need to take some of this savings and apply that to this telephone bill that needs to be paid, or a mortgage that needs to be covered?
Absolutely. Well, your four walls want to be covered. Your shelter, so your rent or your mortgage, your food, clothes, and transportation. So those four things need to be covered. Now, that doesn't include cable. That may not include out to eat. So if you can't give, save, and then pay bills, you need to cut some of your bills then. There needs to be some places that you cut, because people who win with money, they're mostly usually very generous people. They give and they serve people. That's one of the reasons they've won. And they save. They have money saved.
Yes.
And so those are things, and those are biblical as well. In the house of the wise, there's stores of choice food and oil. A foolish man devours all he has. Wise people save. So it's all through Scripture. This is very biblically based. And so I would say cut your lifestyle in half, or see if you can fix the income.
You just stepped on some toes. You
I
just
know
took
I
somebody's
did.
manicure away.
I know, and I love a manicure, right? And so that's the other thing Mom and Dad taught me, which was great, is that it's okay to have some nice stuff.
Yeah.
Just don't let your nice stuff have you. And your stuff can have you
hear that?
in two ways. It can have you if it owns you financially, if you go into debt for it, and it can own you if your identity, your happiness is wrapped up in that thing. So that was huge, because I enjoy shopping. I enjoy getting my nails done, right? Priscilla, look, I did that for you.
I
got a manicure for the,
I don't do manicures.
So I want to be able to spend and enjoy my money. And so that gives me a good balance, that it's okay to have some nice stuff. Just don't let your nice stuff have you.
And unfortunately, the culture we live in, the ideology of our culture financially, is the exact opposite of what you're describing. We do not live in a culture that celebrates the overall win for your life if you restrain yourself in areas that are honestly superficial, but our culture has grouped them underneath the need category. That you need, just like you need four walls, you also need to have this particular furniture inside those four walls. And you also need not just to have the television. You can't just have primetime TV stations. You have to have the NFL package as well, or HGTV, or Lifetime, or come on, y'all know what I'm talking about, right? We have to have all of this stuff to go with it. So all of a sudden we find that our needs have blossomed out of control, and we're trying to keep up a lifestyle that is keeping us in debt and in bondage. And how do we get to a place for the person that can't let the cable go, they can't let their bi-weekly or bi-monthly trip to the salon go, they just feel like, oh, I have to do that. How do you even begin to cut yourself free?
Sure, well, I would say I want you to get to the place where you can be able to have that kind of stuff again. So I want you to have to make short-term sacrifices for long-term gain. So cut the lifestyle for a year or two while you get out of debt. You know, as much money as you can throw, the deeper you can cut your sacrifice, the more money you can throw to be debt-free. When you don't have payments, it's amazing what happens. When your income comes in and it's yours, you get to decide what to do with it. I've realized that debt is a thief. Debt not only steals your income from you, but it steals your peace of mind. It steals your sleep at night. It steals your motivation for why you go to work, because you have to pay Visa and your student loan, right? It changes so much. It steals so much from us. So when you can be free from that, not only financially does the income come in, and you have your income. You get to go get the manicure or go to the spa, whatever you want to do. You have the money to be able to do that now, and the freedom that comes with it, that you don't owe anyone anything.
Yeah. I love that you and your dad have written this book together. I love it so much. If you do not have a copy of this incredible book, Smart Money, Smart Kids, you need to get it. Obviously, particularly if you have children, this book is going to be a blessing to you. But beyond that, if you don't have children, you still need this book, because there is so much wisdom inside of this book that is just good for you, whether you are a child or whether you're just childlike in managing your finances and you're just needing good advice to help to get you to a place of freedom. But speaking of raising children, I loved this particular part of the book, and I wanted to ask you about this. This is you writing, and you say, work was never an option in the Ramsey house, no matter how young Denise, Daniel, or I were. From the time I was 5 years old, I was working on commission. Listen to this, y'all. Mom and Dad didn't believe in giving us an allowance. Dad hated that word. It implied that a child is allowed a certain amount of money just for living and breathing. I love that so much. And your dad went on to talk about how allowances, the mere definition of the word allowance is that you're making an allowance for someone who is not able to do a task.
That's right.
So we're actually, do you think, crippling our children by enabling them in a way to feel like they do not have to put out or exert effort or energy, and they are rewarded financially for that?
Absolutely. I mean, I think there's a whole generation that has a disconnect of where money comes from. And you have to have this foundation that money comes from work.
It doesn't fall off of trees?
Right, right. It doesn't come from mom and dad's back pocket. It doesn't just grow. It comes from a plastic card, right? You have to go to work. And so the great thing about that, and I think some parents think it's harsh, but to be able to let your kids do some chores around the house, get the commission. If you do the work, you get paid. If you don't do the work, you don't get paid. It's kind of shocking, right? It's like an adult, right? We experience this on a day-to-day basis. And so to be able to make that connection, not only once they have that money and they earn it, when they give it, they're giving their money from something that they've earned, that they've sacrificed. When they save it, they're feeling that. When they spend it, they feel it so much more emotionally. There's so many teachable moments when your kids earn money. And sure, there's gonna be chores that they do around the house because they're part of the family, and that's fine. You know, the kitchen for us growing up, we didn't get paid on anything. We had to bring our dishes to the sink. When we got older, we had to clean the kitchen, do the dishes, right? So like that, we didn't get paid on. But little things we did around the house. And for that, again, so grateful, because that work-money connection, and once I made money, I got to feel it, and I got to experience, you know, the good and the bad with having money.
Do you think that this issue of work ethic is really what will help us to solve this problem of a generation of young people that are entitled?
Yes, I think entitlement, I think that's a huge subject. We could probably have a whole nother show on this.
And can I say that I get nervous about that with the boys? I get nervous about them just because, again, we live in a culture where so much is available to them. It's so readily available to them. They are blessed, as many of our children are, to live in a place that's just comfortable for them. They've got a bed to sleep in. They have good food that's on the table. And you worry about your kids expecting the next iPod just because it came out. I mean, I'm just like, no, you may not have a phone. I don't care if your friends have a phone. I refuse to get you a phone because I don't want you to think just because it's available, you're supposed to have access to it. How do we keep our kids? What are some of the things you suggest to keep your kid? What's the balance between helping them enjoy the blessings that God has given them without also becoming entitled to expect blessings from God in the sense of tangible things that they're supposed to have?
Absolutely. Well, I think, one, the work thing is huge. When your kids can work and they can save and they can pay for something on their own, so much happens. They learn patience, they learn work ethic, there's so much around that. But I think a key spiritual principle for us as adults as well is contentment, and teaching your child contentment. And so as I was looking at this, godliness with contentment is great gain. You have so much gain when you're content as a person, but it's so hard. And so for kids and adults, I think in order to be content, first we have to be grateful. And I believe in a heart filled with gratitude.
These are such simple principles that hit you like a rock, though, don't they, when she says them? Because when you're not content, that automatically shows you that you lack gratitude in your life. And so when you just bought your kid those tennis shoes. You just bought them. They just got them at Christmas, and 3 months later for their birthday, they need a new pair of tennis shoes because they no longer like the pair that you just bought for Christmas.
Right. Oh.
Then that's telling you that they lack contentment in what you just gave them because they're actually not as grateful as they should be for the blessings that they're being given. But it's not just our kids, is it?
It's us. Well, I went on a trip to Charleston with my husband about 2 years ago, and I was home for maybe an hour, and I was on Instagram watching this girl, and she was in Greece yachting through the Greek Isles or something crazy, right? And I was
your
like,
friends?
No, not my friend. I thought it was a fashion blogger. No, I'm not friends with her. No. But this girl I don't even know, right? And I'm like, I needed to buy airline tickets to Greece. Like I suddenly feel like I need to be in Greece, which we couldn't afford. But I was looking at that, I was like, Rachel, an hour ago, I just got back. And those are a moment where I had to put my phone down. I said, Rachel, you have be grateful. Like what you just went on this. So I have to check myself so much as well on a daily basis.
And social media makes this all harder.
Oh, it's tough. I know.
Don't y'all think our kids can see everything that all the other kids have?
Yes.
We can see,
Well, keeping up with the Joneses, 30 years ago, you had to watch the Joneses pull their new car in the driveway. And today, the Joneses have 18 different filters on Instagram, right? Yeah. I mean, they paint everything, and it's like, oh my gosh, they're always there. And I always get this a lot because I don't want to blame social media, but I think it is the vehicle which takes us down the road to comparison.
Yeah.
And when you start comparing, that's where things get in trouble. And so it's so hard. And I think parents today, there is an uphill battle for all of this, but staying consistent, staying in the Word, praying for your children, being those models, I believe you can raise a great child. There is hope for this generation. There are going to be some great kids that come out of it. So it's exciting to see, because we see parents all over the country doing it, and it's really exciting.
Well, there you go. It's discipline, y'all. It's gratitude, it's contentment, and I think our kids are going to catch that as we are disciplined, are grateful, and are content with what the Lord has given us. You are certainly proof of that, because here we had two parents that were bankrupt the year that Rachel was born, and now she's sharing financial advice all over the world to students and adults alike. Again, you're going to want to pick up a copy of her book that she co-authored with her dad, #1 New York Times bestseller. There is advice in this that will keep you from passing your stupidity and my stupidity down to the next generation. We can be financially free, and we can raise a generation of kids and grandkids, by the way. If you're a grandmother, a grandfather, this would be a great gift for you to begin to sow into the lives of your grandchildren, this new attitude about financial freedom. So remember, this is just part 1 of our conversation with Rachel. We are going to have a part 2. You're going to want to check that out as well. But for now, would you guys please help me to thank Rachel Crees for being a part of our program today?